The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's a Monday. The beginning of another week in the Riv.
And it's Eclipse Day.
Yeah, Eclipse Day. Yeah, well, we've had a total eclipse of the city for years. So.
Well, for those people who are interested, today here at BCC starting at about 1 o'clock, also at UMass Dartmouth at 1 o'clock, will be an eclipse viewing party. Fall River will have the pleasure of having about a 70%, 75% eclipse to a total eclipse. Some devices will be available so you can see it and photograph this eclipse. Remember, don't look directly into the sun. If you got a welder's helmet, bring it. You'll be able to see much better. You might be able to weld the city back together, too, while you're at it.
It's not BYOG, bring your own glasses? No?
Hey. Glasses are hard to come by right now, which is
right.
very interesting. They had a race. And the next eclipse will be in 7 years, in 2024. And at that time, Fall River will have a 90 to 95% total eclipse. So,
wow. If Fall River's still here.
Yeah. Yeah, I was having a conversation this weekend with a couple of people who were from Fall River at one time and kind of moved away. We get together online every so often and start chit-chatting away.
I think ran away would be more.
Exactly. And they try not to come back unless they absolutely have to. And they were saying, you know, the smartest thing they could do with Fall River is to break it into 4 pieces. One goes to Westport, one goes to Tiverton, one goes to Assonet, the other goes to Somerset. I turned around and said, what did they ever do to you?
That's right.
Oh, God. It's very interesting. Hey, how many people read Marc Dion's column today or last night into today?
Yeah, it was, again, on point. We've talked about it. We talked about movie theaters that served alcohol, but it was right on point. But I really, really like his final line. And it says, I think I'll hang out with Herman the hobo Friday night. Like many people in city government, he'll be my friend just as long as I'm buying. And boy, ain't that the truth? All right, to get an old colloquially, ain't that the truth?
Oh, yeah.
You know, as long as the taxpayer's paying, we have, you know, money is no object. He talked about Money Mike Aguiar being the new
alcohol czar.
Alcohol czar, you know, and he's even got a little Simon and Garfunkel. Where have you gone, Money Mike Aguiar? Fall River turns its bloodshot eyes to you. So, I'll tell you, this is, you know, the thing is, though, it's satirical, but it's right on point.
It is.
You know, the sad part about it is, again, we're attempting to fix this city in ways that doesn't fix it. And when he goes on to talk about, you know, taking his wife out to the movies and running into people pushing carts with cans and with track marks on their arm and having cigarettes bummed from them. He's going to invite all his out-of-town friends to come with him. You know, this is the whole thing. You know, we listen to these delusionary plans to fix Fall River. Like, let's market Fall River. Let's get the tourism director. Who the hell wants to come here? It's like they you know, they can't read. We were the 5th worst city in the country by one. We're in the top 50 in drug addiction. You don't think people on it? Yesterday when I was driving over the bridge, I saw all the Cape traffic with all the out-of-state plates driving up. You know, driving up I-95, going home to New York and New Jersey or wherever they were, in Connecticut or whatever. And you know, it was heavy traffic. And they were all tourists. They had the bicycles on the top and the canoes and whatever, you know. And I'm saying, yeah, there they go. You know, the only time they're in Fall River is when they're going through the highway, and then they roll. They tell the kids to roll up the windows.
But I loved it because I wonder where this term came from. The administration of boy emperor Jason
That's
Correa.
right. Yeah. I wonder where he got that one from. Kudos, CJ. So now you're being quoted. You didn't get the. He should have put that in quotations and said thank you, CJ Ferry, for that label. But that's the reality. We've talked endlessly on this program about the only way to fix this city is to get people working, to get apprenticeship programs, to give people training, to give people a paycheck, so actually our city can fix itself by having people that can spend money and keep businesses afloat. But they continue to say, no, that's not the way to do it. Bring in a whole bunch of tourists, and they'll fix our problem. Well, it didn't fix it in probably one of the biggest tourist meccas in the United States, Miami.
No,
because South Beach is a gold mine. But Miami still was picked as the worst city to live in.
Right.
So, number one, Miami can get people to go to tourists. Number one, we can't get tourists in the first place. And secondly, if they come here, they'll never leave wherever they went to and contribute to the city economy. So it's just ridiculous.
Well, interestingly enough, I saw a column about the top 10 places to eat in Fall River. I had to laugh. The Cove restaurant was number one. I've been to the Cove. It's okay. I didn't find it to be amazing, but it is better than most places in Fall River.
Yeah, it's like the Capitol Grill of Fall River.
Yeah, exactly. And then they had like Estoril restaurant. They had McGovern's as the last, number 10. But they had Almac's Diner above McGovern's. I was like,
how about Graham's Hot Dogs? Did they make
that wasn't
the list?
there. That didn't make the list.
That should have been in there. Graham's Hot Dogs had to be in. But that's Fall River. It's like the Cove. They're trying to have, look. McGovern's has been around for a long time. McGovern's is a staple. If you want a decent meal at a decent price,
you go to McGovern's.
That's the reason they've been in business for a long time.
Right.
It's probably one of the few non-Portuguese restaurants that have survived.
But that was the whole thing. The majority of the restaurants on there were all like Portuguese.
Well, I mean,
because
that's all we have basically
that's all
in the city outside of McGovern's. Really,
and it's sad. It's sad because I'll tell you right now, if I was to look at the top 10 restaurants in Boston, they would not be anything of the poorest quality that Fall River has. And I'm not saying that to be insulting to the restaurants that we have in Fall River. I'm saying it because when you compare it to Providence or Boston or New York, the quality we have is nowhere near.
And CJ, even the selection. We look at a community like Taunton. Taunton is like what, a third of the size of Fall River, but you go to Taunton and you have tremendous diversity in your food selection. I mean, if you get off 140 or 44 and just drive into Taunton, you go by all kinds of restaurants and of different types. But Fall River, and the only reason that those restaurants survive are because the majority of them are Portuguese restaurants, and all of them have bars, and they survive because of their bar traffic. You get a
liquor licenses.
Yeah, liquor licenses. But you get a whole bunch. You walk in there, and you got a whole bunch of people at the bar watching a soccer game.
That's right.
And drinking beer. And that's how they survive. And, we do have good Portuguese restaurants. We're probably the best place, in the country to get a Portuguese meal. Fall River and New Bedford because of our population. But see, then again, it's a false indicator of the economy. Oh yeah, well we got a lot of restaurants. Well, 95% of them are Portuguese, and 95% of them, a lot of them have stayed in business due to their bar traffic because you look and you say, well, the one at Stafford Square,
Estoril.
No, Estoril's up at the top of Pleasant. That's right. The one is Calderas. Calderas, yeah. It's good, but they had a problem for a while where they were really starving in their restaurant because they got a new chef, and I guess he wasn't really that good, and they weren't getting a lot of traffic, and they had the dinner for two with a bottle of wine for $25, and which was a pretty good deal. And even then, but I guess ultimately they straightened out the kitchen, and now they do a pretty good traffic restaurant-wise. But I happen to know someone who's very friendly with the owner, and he was very upfront about it. And I spoke to him at one time. I went there for dinner, and he basically said, without the bar, I would have went out of business. He said, when I had that period, and all businesses suffer some periods where they're going to have,
of course,
you know,
they do.
And the fact is, he said very, very clearly that without the bar, that restaurant would have been closed. So, again, we see, you know, then they turn around and talk about things, but we don't have, I mean, for a city of our size, we have virtually no, you know, food choices. We don't have you know, we did at one time have an Italian restaurant that lasted about 12 seconds. you know, we had a steakhouse that lasted about 14 seconds. They don't last. Why don't they last? Was it that bad? I don't think so. But it was because people don't have the money. You know, we don't have an Abe and Louie's like in Boston, which is one of the premier steakhouses in Boston. Of course, they have Ruth Chris and the other chains. But we don't have any of that. You think it's coincidental that even a chain steakhouse, it's not a prime steakhouse where you're going to pay $50 or $60 or $70 just for the steak, but just the chain. Do you think it's coincidental that Longhorn, which isn't a bad steakhouse for the chain kind of thing, do you think it's coincidental that the two closest Longhorns are in Rainham / Taunton, right off the highway, and in Seekonk? Seekonk and Rainham are about, what?
20 miles?
Yeah, but it's about a tenth of the size of Fall River,
right?
Those communities. But why are those restaurants there? Did the buzzer go off, Mayor? Did the buzzer go off, City Council? It went off because the people in Seekonk and the people in Rainham.
Escroll.
Money! Money! They got money to spend. They go to these restaurants. You go into those places and you have the business. And, you know, but this is, again, and as he said over here, they never run out of bad ideas in Fall River, but he said in the article, they'll hang out with us as long as we're buying.
That's
right.
And
that's what we do. We buy, we pay, and we finance all their ridiculously convoluted ideas. You know, we've been saving this city for the last 15 years with planting gardens on parking. Remember that one with Jason at the beginning? We were going to have the Garden of Eden in a parking garage. Yeah, and so these are the kind of ridiculous ideas. Or let's bring in, you know, one thing is going to save Fall River. Well, Amazon didn't save it. You know, they're still trying to get people to work there. And, you know, it's about training people. It's about getting your workforce, identifying people who have the ability to secure a job, who want to secure a job, and give them the tools to get a job. And once they get a job and a paycheck, they'll probably move out. But the reality is this is what will stimulate the economy. You know, people stimulate the economy no matter how many times you tell them, and no matter who tells them, whether it's a Nobel Prize winning economist like Milton Friedman, a world leader, you know, like Winston Churchill. The city of Fall River and its government has never figured out that you can't tax your way to prosperity.
Imagine that. Imagine that. But, you know, the sad part about it is that there is truly somewhere, I don't know where, but somewhere, there's got to be, you know, a diamond in the rough. And if not a diamond, at least a cubic zirconia, you know what I mean?
And in Fall River, that's good enough.
Yeah, you know, it's really a shame. I mean, you're just talking about Amazon, but how about Market Basket?
Yeah.
They've had a trailer out there all last week trying to hire help. Every time I went by there, and I went by there several times, I noticed there wasn't a lot of people applying for jobs. Because the people in Fall River, and, you know, I hate generalizing in this fashion, but it seems to be so true, the people in Fall River don't want to work. They're happy with their their EBT cards and their Social Security and their welfare and their food
and
stamps.
their state-paid medical coverage.
Right.
And, if they get a job at Market Basket, they got to stop paying co-pays.
Yeah, exactly.
With their health care.
Well, and speaking about that, it's really interesting because I go to the pharmacy to pick up my prescriptions, which I have a copay, which I have to pay, and the person in front of me who has one of what I call the gold health cards from the state, they have a $1.20 copay. You know what they say? Oh, I can't pay it, waive it. $1.20, they can't pay it. They get to waive it. And I was talking to the pharmacist. I said, these people just get to waive their copays. He says, and we have to do it. He says, in some cases, that copay is what we make on the prescription. He goes, so we have to waive it so we don't make a dime on it. We just sit here acting as the drug dealer that doesn't make any money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the culture we're living in, and now we've evolved so much on the drugs since we got into the drugs that there's a new treatment for opioid addiction. Make them hook them on pot. We want to make marijuana. So you see how this thing this giant, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but you see how this all kind of interacts. We've created it. We changed the name. And no longer, it's a disease now. And, they don't have any control. It's not a choice. It's a disease. They got it like cancer. And now we're going to spend trillions of dollars. And so those trillions of dollars are going to be paying somebody's fat salary to do something that this problem's been around for 50 years. And our great competent government can't handle it. Other countries have managed to deal with it, but we can't for some reason. So now they figured out another way to make money. Now they're legalizing marijuana all over the country, and now some genius was on, actually I saw him this morning on some show on a national network. I don't know if it was CBS or NBC, talking about the new program he's devised. And there were a bunch of doctors there, and he said, well, our program is to get them hooked on marijuana, give them marijuana instead. So one of the doctors said, well, isn't that taking one addiction and giving it? He said, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. He said, but marijuana won't kill them. And that's all they're concerned about now. So we're not even attempting, now we've gone from the ridiculous to the sublime. They're not even attempting to cure their addiction or their addictive personalities. It's like, okay, the new idea is the hell with it. We're not going to cure them. Let's just let them sell them pot for the rest of their life and let them get high on pot. Well, you know what's going to happen with that is all the marijuana places are going to make tons and tons of money.
Exactly.
And guess what? They're not going to get away from that. They're not going to get away from that addiction because they're going to get high on marijuana. Then they're going to go on heroin, and it's like they're going to still need their heroin because it's not the same type of high. So I mean, it's like I said, we've gone from the ridiculous to the sublime, and this again is almost what Marc Dion was talking about. As long as we're paying our tax dollars, the people who work, as long as we're paying, they'll never run out of ridiculous ideas to waste our money. While they've eliminated the middle class, basically, they never run out of ways to figure out how to spend our money and urinate it in the hole.
That's it. But it's funny you should bring that up about substitution for addiction, because I listened on Friday to a program on WSAR in regards to dealing with addiction, and they were talking about methadone from Habitco or whatever they call themselves, and they were talking about how they don't have a plan to take them off methadone. They leave that up to the patient to decide they're going to get off methadone.
Well, there's a good idea.
Right. So, and they do everything in 90-day periods, and they're saying that the majority of people come from Fall River, which I can probably believe, but I see so many people coming in from cabs that say Bluebird, which is New Bedford, and cabs from Boston and Taunton and everywhere else. So again, we're bringing them in here. And why do you bring them in here? Because they failed at other centers somewhere else.
And cabs, by the way, the taxpayer pays for.
That's right.
We have to tell people that it's not like they're taking a cab with their money.
That's right.
No, they're taking a cab with our money.
That's covered under what's called the PT1 under Mass Health, and they can fill that out, and they can get their transportation costs paid. But again, I'm not against treatment, and you and I have both said this numerous times. We're not against treatment. We're just against the abuse of this treatment. I, for years, have not been a methadone supporter because all I've ever seen is that people are on it for 20, 30 years. It wasn't meant to be a continuous source of support for the addict. It was meant to assist them to get off. That's why it's called medicated assisted therapy. It's not supposed to be medicated chronic therapy.
Well, I didn't, you know, I don't think, and I don't claim to be an expert. I don't know relatively the first thing about what the grand plan for that thing was. But I was always under the impression that was a transitional thing while they got off it, and not to trade one addiction for another and stay on that for 20 or 30 years. But that's what they did with methadone. And now they're going to try to do that with marijuana. This guy came up with this genius plan to now, and he had, and you know, the irony of it, I looked at it and I'm shaking my head while I'm watching the television, and I'm saying, and he didn't even pretend or try to come up with some fancy little, you know, well, if we're going to do this and we'll transition him into curing him. He basically said, no, we have no intention of curing it. We're just going to trade that addiction that can kill him for an addiction that won't kill him.
Exactly. Okay. But, you know, it's funny because if we go back to Marc's column, what did he say here?
Yeah.
The administration of boy Emperor Jason Correa took forever off from fighting the opioid crisis. So there's time to push for more liquor licenses. So, again, we're trading one addiction for another, and now the mayor's fighting opioids to now fighting to get more liquor licenses to create more problems. And for many, many years, Fall River has always had a problem with alcohol. I mean, you remember the days when you could walk down Pleasant Street and you wouldn't go a block without being in front of a bar?
Yeah.
Go down Bedford Street.
Almost every corner.
Every corner.
On Pleasant, Bedford, and even down in the South Main Street area.
Right.
You know,
East
I
Main
mean, there
Street
was a
used to be
bar everywhere.
Yeah. South
and that
Main
was a kind of a leftover from the Second World War, because the sailors from Newport used to come down to Fall River, and there was a bar on every corner.
That's right.
You know, even when I was a kid, we'd walk up. Now we see panhandlers on every corner. And when I grew up, when you walked around the Flint, you had a drunk on every corner. So it was like somebody falling down outside.
And they all came to Fall River to meet the Gilhooleys.
Yeah, outside, you know, I'd walk up to the top of Pleasant Street, and I'd you know, Pleasant and Quikasham, and they had the Pleasant Cafe there, and there would always be one of the, we had one drunk that was there like every Friday and Saturday night. I'd see him like laying on the sidewalk in front of the bar or something like that. So it was, you know, it's almost, you look at this and, you know, of course, and, you know, the reality is communities with lower socioeconomic, you know, status normally have more problems. You know, in Newton, if they get blind drunk and fall down on their face, it's normally in their $1 million house after sipping martinis.
Exactly.
You know, they're not drinking Thunderbird wine out in the back of the Pleasant Cafe.
But you know, it's funny you should bring that up, because even with tobacco products, advertising from the tobacco companies is higher in socioeconomic levels that are much lower.
Yeah.
And they're also much higher advertising in areas which are occupied mainly by minorities. And and I remember the days you'd go to the stores and you'd see the tin cool sign inside the store on the counter, or outside the store on the wall, and you know, it'd be right outside of schools. And this is what we're doing. And I understand that alcohol licenses are required for a lot of restaurants to survive. I understand that. But when the alcohol licenses came up for the movie theater, I spoke against that. I made it very clear. How are they going to guarantee that the people drinking the alcohol are of legal age?
And not only that, like Dion said, they're going to have a package store right next door. People aren't going to pay $9 for a draft beer. You pay almost $6 for a soda in a movie theater.
Exactly. You need a mortgage.
So how much are they going to charge for a beer. So what they're going to do is go next door to the packet store, like he said, and buy nips.
Yep.
You know, and they're gonna be blind drunk. I think we could make a lot of money having a lottery on when we have the first stabbing or shooting inside the movie. I think that would be a better way to raise
make some money.
So and it would be more. But
I'm gonna take him up on the bet too about the when's the first overdose going to occur.
Then it's truly Flora. But I've got to say something in your column. You talked about, you know, I will defend, you know, I'll defend to the death your right to speak, and he'll, you know, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but it's an old one that, you know, and you know that even if I disagree you, I'll defend your right with the right to say it. But you know, I got to say something about what's going on here, what went on in Boston, like you did, and what went on in these other communities. You know, America was about being able to say whatever you like, regardless of how reprehensible or disgusting it is to other people, as long as you don't act out on things. And as I've said here numerous times, and you can go back 3 or 4 years, and I cited the time the American Civil Liberties Union lawyers, most of whom were Jewish, defended the American Nazi Party's right to demonstrate, even though those are the people that wanted to stick them all in ovens.
Right.
You know, the fact is that this is what makes America. And, you know, and what disturbs me is people who call themselves liberals. And I don't believe in labels, because I don't believe in liberals and conservatives. Right. I think everybody's liberal about what they want and conservative about what they got.
Exactly.
So that's the reality of that's being a pragmatist. Yeah. But the reality is, as far as I'm concerned, that no matter what, you can disagree, you can demonstrate. But when people who are supposed to be liberals now want to act like fascists, and they don't want to give somebody else the right to say what they dislike, they're not Americans.
No.
They're the people, look, you know, I mean, look at, those people are a lunatic fringe that nobody pays attention to. Let them go out there and spew what they got. If they can, look, the fact is we see Americans being radicalized by Islam. So you think that we're not going to have a few wingnuts who are going to believe that? But the majority of people, you should let them speak, because the more people hear them, the more people just completely forget about them. They don't want to hear about it. But no, instead we're going to have protests and people who are nonviolent bringing clubs to the, you know, and it's look.
Yeah, and if you're nonviolent, why do you bring a club to the?
That's right. Yeah,
because remember, it was these nonviolent protesters, 15,000 plus, that got arrested. 33 right. of them. And the majority of those people that were arrested were minorities. And I watched some of the videos.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you know the minorities are at fault for this, but there were 45 to 60 of the quote-unquote white supremacists, or whatever they may have been. They were free speech advocates that were speaking. There was no fights, no arguments. They were escorted out of there, not a problem. Then the anti-free speech people, whatever they would call themselves, that's beyond me, they caused fight. They attacked the police department. Come on. And now they're saying, oh, well, the KKK and the neo-Nazis got infiltrates in there, and they caused that to die. You know, I don't want to.
Yeah, they don't want to take the heat. The bottom line is, look, the bottom line is, you may not like it. I don't like it either. I don't like when people burn flags. I don't like when people, you know, spit on flags and desecrate a symbol that hundreds and thousands of men and women died for. A flag that's a symbol, whether you like what a group is doing or the way the government is acting, is irrelevant as far as I'm concerned, but it's only my personal opinion. But the flag is a symbol of this nation, and this nation is a symbol of a place where you can say anything you want. And you people that call yourself liberals, try to remember that, because America is about allowing someone to say something that you don't like. Not the only people that have freedom of speech is people who agree with you.
Well, I think Oscar Wilde said it best. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend your right to speak like an ass. And that's paraphrased. Hey, go out and watch the eclipse today. Have a great day, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
And don't forget to use your glasses.
Yeah, please. No blind people.